Welcome to Finding Your Light Friday, where we dive deep into tools, modalities, and professionals who can help you live and shine a little brighter. Welcome to Friday. So I'm excited to have this gentleman with me. I actually got connected with you. Do you know how I connected with you?
I'm going to assume it was Clubhouse.
Clubhouse. Yes, my new favorite weird thing to do.
Me too.
As a podcast nerd, I'm like, what do you mean? You just listen to people and get to talk to other people? It's like endless podcasting.
It's amazing.
It is. It's so fun. I've had so many cool conversations. So Chad, will you introduce yourself to our...
Okay. So my name's Chad Harrigan. I am a co-founder of a company called the YCLN Company. YCLN stands for You Can Live Now. Our main mission is to help people live, love, and lead lives of integrity and value for eternity. This company grew out of a therapy experience. In 2014, my wife and I lost our 2-year-old son, and it was to a type of pneumonia that doesn't present itself traditionally in children under the age of 2. Needless to say, that moment utterly destroyed us.
Yeah.
Changed our life forever. We were fortunate to have access, good people in our life, a couple who were grief counselors who worked with us, and we eventually got into therapy, couples and individuals, and therapy then helped us survive. And then we got into coaching. Coaching helped us thrive and rebuild our lives again.
Yeah.
And out of that experience from being a patient, I started my coaching journey as a provider. And we end up working with a lot of parents, families, individuals and couples as well, but we get a lot of people who are still chasing dreams, even though life is happening to them. And our thing is, life doesn't get to just happen to you. You get to happen to life.
Yeah.
And so we believe that coaching and therapy are the process, the way to make that happen. Yeah.
I mean, it's something that I think is a common path for a lot of people in the coaching business. We have some kind of on our knees moment where you just sit, life happens and you get on your knees, and then you find a tool that really helps you. And then you discover, and at some point you turn around and go, well, if more people had this tool, I think we'd all be doing a whole lot better. And part of, a percentage of those people are then empowered enough to be like, okay, I'm on this earth to help people, or as a healer, and to share this with more people. So I would love to hear. So do you and your wife work together in your practice?
We work together and separately.
Yeah.
So my wife is a DPT. She has a doctorate in physical therapy. And she is a women's health specialist.
Oh, nice.
And through her specialty, she received her coaching training. And so a lot of what she does is very holistic, because there is documented scientific connection between our mind, our emotions, and our body.
Oh, 100%.
So one of the things that I thought was really cool is learning that stress causes physical inflammation in the body. And so one of the things that she's found is that dealing with a lot of emotional and mental blocks can release a lot of physical stuff happening in you, as far as pain, pain with sex, pain with movement. A lot of her work, she has discovered connections between certain conditions that they prescribe medicine for and certain anxieties. Those two go hand in hand. So being able to work on one in conjunction with the other really leads people towards healing. Most of my work is in mental and emotional wellness, executives and people in the tech industry.
Yeah.
And then I've got my private practice clients who are mostly, like I said, parents, entrepreneurs, individuals, speakers. I have other coaches and other therapists as clients. They just happen to usually have kids or families, or they happen to have the common thread of, well, I wanted to do this. This happened in my life and kind of derailed me.
Yeah.
Or I haven't really figured out my purpose. And, you know, I'm good at all these things, but I'm lacking direction.
Yeah.
So it's been really, really, really interesting. What's funny is you get in the corporate world, and I don't do business coaching there. I don't do career coaching. It's all about mental and emotional wellness.
Yeah.
One of my philosophies is that you take you everywhere you go with you.
Yeah.
And if you are struggling in some area of your life professionally, 9 times out of 10, you're struggling in some form or fashion in that area personally. And we really believe the myth of this work-life separation because it makes us feel good. It lets us create excuses for, well, I'm an ass at work. Well, I'm sorry. Can I do that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Get ready. Get ready. You just haven't heard me talk yet.
You know, I can act like this at work with my coworkers, but I'm not gonna do that in the same way at home. But you're still a jerk at work.
Yeah.
Or you're a jerk to your spouse. And you're nicer to these people that you're not married to or that you didn't birth or raise.
Yeah.
Say that you love. And really contending with that and figuring out how to be great everywhere we go really goes a long way to helping us be the people we want to be. I know it's a long answer. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I love, there's so many good parts I want to pull out of that. First, I want to start at the beginning about your wife, which is something that we see, you know, here at the ketamine clinic all the time is people come in saying, I have a chronic pain issue, especially non-specific chronic pain, fibromyalgia, you know, all types of autoimmune disorders. And, you know, we go back and we're like, okay, so when did that start? Shockingly, for most people, it started with a traumatic event, an emotionally traumatic event. And then all of a sudden they have an autoimmune disease. And I'm like, well, actually, you're just sitting in the sympathetic nervous system all the time. Your whole body's inflamed and it's pissed at you. And so we come in, and ketamine, of course, is also used for pain. And so some people come in and it's like, oh, it's a pain issue. And I'm like, okay, well, I want to just unpack what's about to happen is because we're going to really get you down to the root cause of your, you know, healing of your trauma and then work on integrating that. And then they come out and they're like, you know what? I am pain-free. Nothing hurts. Like I can't, you know, all this stuff. And I'm like, that's because it's not separate. It's all the same. Your nervous system picks those signals up exactly the same as you're being chased from a lion. It's like, oh no, we're going to die, you know? And that's the same thing that chronic stress does on the body. And so having people really understand that, it's really, it's mind-blowing for people who don't understand that connection, that when they start processing trauma, that all of a sudden, all of the things that hurt and were hard are now easier. Not only on top of that is when you lessen the emotional burden that people are pulling out, all of a sudden they have this energetic lift, which I'm sure you see in your practice when they start to feel better. Now they're like, oh my God, you know, I can do all those things that I know I should be doing anywhere, walking, sleeping well, eating well. Like all of a sudden I have this energetic lift. And I was like, that's because the amount of energy you spend daily on your anxiety and your stress and your depression is a serious energetic emotional load on your system, and it wears you down, and then you feel like you have no capacity.
It's amazing. People experience, well, how did doing this thing help me do all these others? How is that related? How is, you know, and they're just, I started doing this again, just out of nowhere. You know,
I love the just out of nowhere. Just all of a sudden happened. Magic.
Right. It's amazing. I'm working on a specialty in clinical trauma right now. And what's really cool is watching how simply educating people on what's going on with them can, while it doesn't fix everything, it goes a long way to making a huge difference in their experience of quality of life.
Yeah.
And what they deal with on a regular basis, you know, because you get a lot of vets, people who are trauma survivors, who are kind of stuck in that moment, and getting them to the place where they realize, if I see myself in the traumatic moment, and you ask somebody on a scale of 1 to 10, how anxious are you? How much anxiety are you feeling? It's going to be a 50. It's going to be through the roof. But changing that a little and saying, in this space right now where you're safe, where nothing can touch you and nothing can harm you, when you remember and think back on that past time when you were in that moment, what's your anxiety level? About a 5, 4. You know, that moment still, what changed? The understanding of where I am right now, the education of this is what goes on with your body. This is what happens. So getting people to, and I tell them, once you're aware, you're going to start reflecting after you've had an episode.
Yeah.
If you keep working on these tools, over time, you're going to start catching it while you're in the middle of it. If you keep working on the tools, eventually we start to recognize it before it happens.
Yeah.
Then we can really do some stuff.
Yeah. I was just having that conversation actually less than an hour ago with a client. And she was like, you know, it's just so interesting. It's not like I didn't know the things that are now coming up. But she's like, it's now that I can't unsee them almost. Right. It's like they've brought into such light that I'm like, is this really what's been happening the whole, like, and it really is. It's like showing you inside some magic box where you're like, oh, I can finally see my patterning. And that doesn't mean, again, like you said, it doesn't mean all of it's going to change all of a sudden. The first step for everyone is at least having some awareness that this is what's happening. And then from there, can you do the integration work to slowly bring it back and, the time and then before. And I just think that work of self-awareness is, I think, such the important work of therapy. And that's really what that allows you to do, is like you have somebody else doing the reflecting lens in a different way. So you're like, oh, maybe how I see things all the time is actually not what's really happening. Is there a different perspective that I can have in that? It's
huge.
Yeah.
It's a game changer for so many people.
Yeah. I would love to dive into how you work with people to kind of, I love this idea of you are who you are. You are where you are at. Well, how did you say that?
You take you everywhere you go with you.
Yes. I would love, because we have a lot of executives that come in here. And of course, initially they come in and they're like, I need the limitless pill. I need the nether thing. And I'm like, brother, you need a down regulator.
You really do.
And that's what ends up happening, interestingly, because, some people are coming in from stress, but a lot of people are coming in and like, oh, I want to function better. And I'm like, what'll make you function better? Chill the hell out. And that is not just at work. That's kind of, taking this holistic whole life approach to that. And I love that that's what y'all do. So I'd love for you to walk through, how do you have people kind of evaluate their kind of different personas and then integrate those into something that maybe is up-leveled in all ways?
So what's really convenient about working with doing some of this corporate work is that those are the issues they bring. So already we're usually starting off with stress at work, stress in communicating with a colleague, anxiety about leadership, imposter syndrome. One lady hated her boss, and it was all I could do to get her to stop focusing on him.
Mm-hmm.
And we wasted so much time redirecting. And eventually I was like, are you like this all the time? Is you at home? And she's like, why would you ask me something like that? Well, you got this thing for your boss, and your boss is living his life. He's fine. He's happy.
Yeah.
You're the only one that seems to be stressed about the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out a lot of the same conversations she was having with her boss, same thoughts and feelings she was having with her husband.
Mm-hmm.
Same approach and thoughts and feelings. But because she loved her husband,
Mm-hmm.
she didn't, in her mind, that's just marriage. It's the same, but it's not. There's no way it's connected.
Yeah.
And then really sitting down and shifting focus into how she saw her husband,
Mm-hmm.
how she felt about his leadership, how she saw herself in relationship to him.
Mm.
A lot of what showed up was her past feeling that her mom was so dependent on her dad and didn't have any power. She wasn't empowered in their relationship. And in her head, I'm never going to be like that. I'm never going to allow that.
Yeah.
So she loved her husband, but she had their marriage and their relationship in this kind of cage, in this box. And the box was chained to her ankle. Mm-hmm. She expected it to do and be able to reach and touch and do all this stuff. But she was afraid to let it go because there were certain things in her husband that reminded her of her father. Mm-hmm. So immediately she put a wall up. She would tense up when we were talking about some of these topics. You could literally, she would clench her fist so tightly, her knuckles would turn white. Mm. But if you were just listening to her and not looking at her, you'd think we're just having a regular conversation about some stuff that happened in her past. Mm-hmm. And working through this particular part of her life, she started to just kind of relax a little more. And while it didn't immediately bring all the trust and everything that she wanted, it started down that path. It opened her up to have conversations and say some things that she hadn't said before. Instead of criticizing, to share her fears, because, there's always something behind that. Yeah. And eventually, and she never directly said, I realized I'm doing both. Mm. But she goes, she's talking to me about her husband. We're working through effective communication. And they're going through our process, and they're having these great breakthroughs and conversations and regaining some intimacy and discovering some freedom and intimacy that wasn't there. And she goes, on another note, I had this conversation with my boss, totally unrelated. And it went so wonderfully. He's still an ass. But we were able to get this done and come to this understanding and yada, yada, yada. He's not as much of an ass as I thought.
Yeah.
And my stress. And so where's your stress level? I think it's like a 5. It was a 20. You remember that. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a 5 now.
Yeah.
Same conversations, 2 different people, same experience, same triggers.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, you know, how working in one area of our life can connect with the other. Because I believe multitasking is a myth. I don't believe there's work-life separation. There's just life.
Yeah.
You're at work or at home. Well, now you're always at home. Um, but there's just you and how you respond to the world around you.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, that's the only thing you really need to worry about for the most part.
Yeah. And I just think that, again, it's an awareness. And when you have awareness of how you interact, we all have dynamics of certain personalities.
Mm-hmm.
That is some kind of dynamic that we create in our lives over and over and over again. And, you know, most people in the mental health believe it's a patterning most of the time from our childhood that we've created some kind of attachment to, and we're trying to fix it with every person that we run into. That's the mirror of the relationship, you know, that we've created. Yeah. And then once you learn that, it was interesting. My parents got divorced when I was 10, and my dad, it was really hard for him, and he took that opportunity to dive into personal work in the early 90s when it really wasn't. I mean, people went to therapy, but you didn't really talk about it. But he kind of went full force into kind of this personal work, and he started doing all this like family dynamic stuff. And he would come home and he would read me these books when I was like in middle school. And he said, I think it's super important that you understand this, because I didn't understand this when I picked your mom. You know, I just remember him saying, he goes, you know, you will tend to pick partners with your parents' best and worst attributes so that you can figure out how to mend those relationships. And he goes, so understanding that, it will help you and guide you when you're picking a partner. And it was just one of those things that, of course, when you're like 14, you're like, what the hell are you? What are you talking about?
You're like, I'm never going to pick anybody like my mom.
Yeah. Oh, don't you worry. I did that real good.
Yeah. And then, actually, oh my God, you and my mom are the same person. What the hell did I do?
Exactly. And then, you know, and then you do this funny thing. Like, I was married in my 20s, and, you know, we did have a good relationship, ended up not working. And so then I dated somebody completely the opposite in my mind. Mm-hmm. And then ended up in the same relationship with somebody that was the opposite. And I was like, I sat there and I go, okay, so the common denominator here is me.
There we go.
So let's work on this, because obviously I'm creating this dynamic in order to, I need to learn something from it. And I haven't quite learned it yet. So the universe is giving me ample opportunity
to figure that out.
Yeah.
One of the biggest lessons, because I'll tell you, losing my son triggered so much.
I can't imagine.
For me.
Yeah.
And what was interesting, this is my second marriage. Mm-hmm. And I said the same thing. All right, I see what I did wrong the first time.
I'll get it.
I married someone even more like my mom the second time.
Yeah.
And I love my mom.
Yeah, of course.
You know, but she's, you know, our parents are action-packed with issues.
Yeah.
You know, and it's crazy. I was proud of how well I chose. Mm-hmm. And there's no way. And I slowly but surely watched my wife become some of the things that my mother is. Mm-hmm. And I was like, how the hell did that happen? I feel like you guys planned this.
Have y'all been talking?
Right. Stop talking to my mom when I'm not around, because I need to monitor your conversations.
Yeah.
But you know, it's been the most interesting thing, because I learned that I need to work out my problems without working them out on my partner.
Oh, there you go. That's like a big thing for everybody to write down.
And that was hard. That's been hard. But that understanding that my wife and I came to really like shifted some stuff in our relationship. This has been, it's been the most amazing thing to watch these transitions. I'm West Indian. I was born in the West Indies. My family we're loud and we're aggressive, and you know, for us it doesn't mean anything. It's just how we are. My wife's family is very passive aggressive, and they're loud, but in a volume kind of way. Yeah, they're super, just, you know, really timid and quiet. And we had to relearn how to communicate, because what we came from wasn't working. Yeah. And it was one of the hardest things at first. And one of the things that changed it was my wife starting to go through her own journey of self-discovery. Because we do this thing where I'm learning something, I'm excited, you're never going to believe this, oh, this is amazing, this is what we need to do. It could just be something as simple as love languages. Yeah. But it blew my mind. Now it's got to blow your mind like it blew mine. Yeah, whatever. I don't care. What? How could you not have your mind blown? What is wrong with you? I don't think this is going to work. Who are you? Who did I marry? What is happening? And, you know, just letting somebody have their own space and their own time, and then they come to you, you're never going to believe what I just heard. What did you just hear? Have you heard of love languages? You mean that thing I talked to you 2 years ago? But in their own time and in their own way, you still eventually meet up where you need to go if you allow space for that. Yeah. It's the coolest thing to see. So now we get to nerd out. Yeah. On all this psychology stuff. That is fun. Yeah. Yeah. That, you know, me and Ken had a very similar thing. I'm a slow emotional processor. I'm a super fast emotional processor, and I process emotions slow as hell. I don't even know what my emotions are. I'm not even sure. I've been an emotional suppressor my whole life. I lived in a family where emotions that were not favorable, unfavorable, bad emotions were not okay. Everything was very tense, so I was the happy kid. So bad emotions did not live in my life until it took me to my knees, because I hid them for 20 years. Yeah. And Ken is basically the opposite. He's a super fast emotional processor. He's an empath. He feels everything immediately. He knows what's going on. He can go through that. But the same thing, informationally, it takes him a little while to kind of work through things, because he gets so locked in the emotions of situations. Yeah. He can't logically think through them as easy. Yeah. And so when we first got together, something would be happening and something would be wrong with me. And he immediately knew something was wrong, and he would just come at me and he would be like, let's talk about this. What's wrong? And I'm like, nothing's wrong. Leave me alone. You're getting too much. I'm fine. I'm fine. That's the lovely lady thing that we do. As you yell, I'm fine at somebody. Sure you are. But, you know, it took us some time to unpack that. One thing that really helped, we use the Enneagram. That was super helpful as a tool. Yeah. But one thing was, and now how it works is he legitimately comes up to me and he goes, I know something's bothering you. When you figure it out, let me know so we can talk about it. So that's what's so important. That's what's like one of the biggest key things that we didn't realize at first. Yeah. And I started noticing this pattern with my patients. You don't always know. So, you know, I relate to your husband as being an empath. And so for me, when it comes to certain types of conversations, I want all the information right now. Oh, yeah. I'm very big on, I need to know what's happening, good or bad, so I know how to deal. Okay. I can deal with anything. I can handle it. I just need to know what's going on. And when somebody else doesn't know what's happening with them, they can't tell you.
Yeah.
I don't know why this bothers me. It just bothers me. I don't know what's bothering me. I just know something's wrong. And until you're ready to talk about it, you're not ready. And all the badgering and all the talk to me, let me help you, let me save you, let me be there isn't going to make it happen any faster.
Yeah.
And one of the things we realized over, I probably did I say about 1,500 sessions in the past year and a half. And in that time, one of the biggest things was I either had the one person who was frustrated that their partner couldn't really explain what they were feeling, what was happening. And then the other person who felt the pressure and I don't know. So back up off me. And you found a couple things. There are some people in relationships who feel that it's their partner's job to figure them out. If you love me, you'll figure me out. You'll know me. And it's the worst relationship.
Here's some landmines for you.
It's one of the most toxic pieces of relationship advice ever.
Yeah.
I mean, and I've seen it on the tweet. A real man studies his wife and figures her out. A real one does it. Yeah, there's a part. Yeah, I need to pay attention to you.
Yeah.
But it's your job to figure yourself out.
Yeah, and I'm not a mind reader.
Thank you. That's cognitive distortion all day long.
Yeah.
But you figure yourself out, you educate, you come back and educate me on how you work. Because if you don't know what triggers you, me telling you what I'm observing from the outside isn't going to do anything for you. You're not going to listen to that.
Yeah.
I could be totally off because there's my assumption and perception in it. And I've got my own view of the world that's going to be different from yours, even in the same situation that we're experiencing simultaneously. You've got to figure out what's going on with you and then come let me know. And it's my job to then listen. And that was one of the biggest things. So when we teach effective communication, one of the things we do is we have these talks about you understanding yourself. And before we even get to how you're communicating with other people, how are you communicating with yourself? What are you learning about yourself? What are you understanding about what triggers you, what doesn't? Is it a tone? Is it particular language? Is it a mood? Is it the setting? What works for you and what doesn't? One of the biggest misnomers about love languages is that the important part about a love language is how I give love. So a lot of people, they misunderstand love languages that way. When the truth is, it's not about how you give love, it's how I interpret love.
Yeah.
So we've all had that conversation where you said, da, 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 da. No, I didn't. You said verbatim, da, 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 da. Well, that's not what I meant. Well, why didn't you just say that? So here, in communication as in love, everything that's up in here is not just what we're trying to communicate, but there's background music, action sequences, all these flashback scenes and connected thoughts and feelings. None of that shit comes out when I talk.
Yeah.
You get straight, dry words. You just get the words. You don't get all this extra that creates this mental experience that I'm having. And so if I'm not aware of what I'm putting out, then it's not going to be received the way I mean it to be. And if I'm not aware of how you receive stuff,
good luck.
I can be feeding you, let's say I can be feeding you spaghetti and meatballs all day long, and what you really want is chicken Alfredo.
Yeah.
And in my head, it's okay because it's pasta.
Yeah.
I'm giving you pasta. The pasta is what you asked for. No, I want chicken Alfredo. You keep giving me spaghetti and meatballs. I hate meatballs and I hate red sauce. You know, but because I'm so focused on how I give love, then or how I want to communicate and what feels good to me to communicate. I got to get out my feelings. I got to feel vindicated. It's got to feel like this. I've got to be heard. The key thing about being heard is that there's another person that has to hear you.
Yeah.
And do I want you to hear what I really mean? Do I want you to hear my heart? Or do I want you to hear what feels good to me?
Yeah.
So in walking through that process and getting people to understand themselves, so then I can say, you know, when you do this, it makes me feel like that. When you talk like this, I'll give you a perfect example. One of the first times my wife saw my whole family, we were, me and my sisters, my mom, and I think one of my brother-in-laws were in the kitchen, and we are going at it. Da, da, da. And then the next thing you know, one of my sisters said something, and we all bust out laughing. What we didn't know is my wife was around the corner. She's hearing what she thinks is a knockdown, drag out argument. And then when we start laughing, she says, no, that's not how this works. You go to your room, you're mad and you don't talk to each other. And we were like,
what
are you talking about? We're not arguing. We're just having a conversation.
Yeah.
Total misunderstanding of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that, you know, her response made me remember a time when we had first gotten married and I raised my voice at her and she cried.
Oh.
I don't do well with tears.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, no. You know how you have a sibling and you make one of them crying?
Yeah.
Find out, you're like, shh, no. It's okay. It's okay.
We're fine. We're fine.
We're all right. You know, and what I learned is that we have to do something totally different that works for us.
Yeah.
Because how I do stuff from my past and how you do stuff from your past isn't going to work here. So really analyzing, because I know what's going to happen right now. Somebody's like, does it really take all that? Do I need to do all this to have great communication, great relationship? And you absolutely have to.
Yeah.
You see couples that have been together 20, 30 years. A common conversation they're going to have is like, yeah, we almost didn't make it. There was 2 years, you know, I tried to poison him every night. I put glass in all his food. But then eventually, you know, we work through stuff. It's because these conversations that we believe people should have in the beginning, they don't learn to have until later on.
Oh, yeah. And
they happen slowly over time because nobody ever said, hey, figure yourself out. Figure out how you communicate. Do you recoil at a raised voice?
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other hand, will you resent the fact that you can't raise your voice and feel that feeling of being able to get that emotion out? Mm-hmm. Is there another way for you to do that? Is that as important as what you're actually trying to communicate? Yeah. And all these little nuances are a huge part of crafting something that works for you and your partner, for you and your family, for you and your manager, you and your team, and understanding this about yourself. These little principles really, really matter. When I got divorced after my first marriage, I went to this seminar. It was the first time I'd ever gone to a marriage seminar. The guy leading it was divorced. Mm-hmm. He tells a story about how he's mid-divorce. They're going through divorce proceedings. They still live in the same house. He comes home. His wife hasn't made dinner. He flips out. Flips tables, stuff flying across the room. She has a guest there, one of her friends. And he said, the craziest thing happened. She looked at me and said, now, if you had done that sooner, we probably wouldn't be getting divorced now. Everybody in the room goes, what?
Mm-hmm.
Here's what happened. Here's what's important. Because of her upbringing, her father would do that.
Yeah.
What she interpreted that to mean was that when you really love someone,
yeah,
you're passionate. You show it, stuff bothers you.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't, it means you're indifferent.
Yeah.
It means you don't care. His house, his father never raised his voice at his mother. When you love someone, you don't talk to them that way.
Yeah.
You don't raise your voice. That shows that you care. When you don't love somebody, you're mean, you're loud, you're in their face.
Mm-hmm.
These were conversations they'd never had out loud. Mm-hmm. These were things they'd never realized about each other until that moment.
Yeah.
A week before their divorce proceedings. He said it messed him up, but when he said that stayed with me. Mm-hmm. And years later, probably a good 10 years later, when I started my practice and I started seeing this, I started noticing that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh shit. That really matters.
Yeah.
These little conversations really matter. And it's tedious. It's a series of conversations. It's not going to be one conversation that fixes everything. Mm-hmm. And we tell people, you have to create Switzerland. Mm-hmm. Neutral territory.
Yeah.
No punishment, no judgment, no retaliation. The Swiss are also known for neutrality, not just really great chocolate. So how do you create that? Mm-hmm. What are you willing to do to make that happen? Because need is not enough. People do what they want to do. If people did everything they needed to do, we wouldn't need doctors. We wouldn't need therapists.
Yeah.
We'd be doing those healthy things. When the people struggle the most, why do I struggle with doing the thing I need to do? I need to lose weight. I need to do this. I need to do that. What do you actually want? I want pizza. I'm not going to do the thing I need to do because I don't want to. So what do you want? Mm-hmm. When I know what I want, that helps explain what I'm willing to do to get what I want. What are you willing to do to get what you want? Does it mean that we only argue in one room? There's one area of the house that is the argument area. Mm-hmm. Does it need to be that? Do I need to do all that? You might have to. And actually, it's probably a healthy thing that you do. Because if we're arguing all around the house, what happens when I'm walking all around the house? I'm remembering.
Yeah. Trigger.
Yeah. If I have one area for this, one room that's just for this, mm-hmm. the judgment, all of that stuff stays in this room, doesn't come out. Mm-hmm. Stays in this corner, doesn't come out. So now we have rules for that area. Yeah. We have rules for how Switzerland works. Yeah. And how we operate in the rest of our world. Mm-hmm. And what we have found is that extra effort, that extra intention and attention to creating what you want, which by the way has to start with creating a vision for what you want, for mm-hmm. what that looks like, a clear one, and working on that. It turns out to really make such a huge difference in the way we communicate, receive communication, and all these residual effects of greater intimacy, deeper understanding and knowledge, greater understanding of ourselves, greater openness to realize and hear, sometimes for the first time, what our partners have been saying for a long time. to craft and cultivate language we probably didn't have before, which is its own set of frustrations for both people.
Yeah.
You know, so long story long.
No, I love that. And it's creating a plan that you're working on together, as opposed to after years of patterning and resentment. And what happens is all of a sudden it's you against you. And that is not a relationship. It's like, why there should be no winners. Like, we're not having a you won, you know. One of my favorite quotes about relationship is, do you want to be right, or do you want to be in a good relationship? Like, that's really freaking important. Like, there is no rightness. Like, let's just, like, the right thing is, do we love each other? Are we moving together? But I love that. One of the things I want to touch on before we wrap up is the question that I asked you in the pre-interview questions is, what are 3 things that people can do to make their lives better? And you said one word 3 times. And what was that word? Do you remember? You said listen, listen, listen. I was like, I gotta say, that's the first time anybody said that.
That is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you, it's made such a difference, because, you know, as you get to know me, I'm very open and candid. I really don't have filters. Listening at different points in our relationship and in our life, when we had the talk about divorce, not me and my first wife, but this is stuff I learned the hard way, and this is me and my second wife after we lost our son. You know, we had that talk.
Yeah.
Can we survive this? Can our marriage survive this? And if so, what'll it take? We had to rebuild and recreate. We had to rediscover. And it took years. We went through a period of time where we were just roommates. I literally, in my head, the trauma of that moment, what was probably maybe 6 to 9 months, which in my head was just a month.
Yeah.
Of us not actually talking to each other, just being in the same room together and going through these emotions. You know, and so the divorce talk kind of snaps, like, oh, we're actually talking about this, like, for real. Oh no, that's not what we wanted. We're not going to let this beat us. So what do we need to do? And we had to learn to listen. There are conversations that I thought we beat this. I thought we handled this. We have to have again. We do. Oh man, I wish I brought it. There is this card game that we love called the Delta Deck.
Okay.
One of our good friends created. It's one of these conversation card games.
Yeah.
It is amazing, because you sit there and you have 2 questions per card and all these different categories. And there are tools that help spark and foster conversation. And a lot of times they're conversations you haven't had. And they're conversations where the same question, if I ask you the same question 2 years apart for 20 years, I'm going to get a different answer every time, because you are growing and changing as a person. And so that tools like that have really, really helped. And I'm a firm believer, don't use tools, find tools. Don't feel that we should just know. There's no, we should just know anything.
Yeah.
This isn't working. What do we want? What do we need to get us there? If life is a game, how can I cheat? What are the cheat codes?
Yeah.
What do I want, and what am I willing to do to make that happen? That's not just a thing to say when you're trying to commit a crime. It's a thing to say when you're trying to have some good stuff in your life.
Yeah.
Am I willing to let this go? Am I willing to go the extra mile? Am I willing to have this tough conversation and be honest and be vulnerable and be open? Am I willing to be wrong?
Yeah.
So I think those would be my things.
I love that.
Listen.
Yes. And I think if this year isn't a lesson in really listen.
Man.
I'll tell you, as a nation, we're not great at it.
No, we're not.
Thus far. No, I mean, as humans, it's hard not to just want to tell your own story and be right about it and screw everyone else. But I think those are just such important things to take away. Do you have anything coming up for y'all that you'd like to share?
So I have right now on our website, youcanlivenow.org. We're actually going to be rebranding before the end of Q1. We're going to be the YCLN company, the YCLNco.com. But right now, if you go into youcanlivenow.org, and that link is always going to stay up and work, we've got a free course and free audiobook.
Oh, awesome.
Learning how to trust yourself again.
That is a huge one this year. So many people, when your foundation gets knocked out, that's just something, you lose your confidence. And when you lose your confidence, you don't trust yourself. You don't trust the universe. You don't trust the world. You don't trust yourself. And then you have a lot of people freeze, you know, because they just don't know what to do. And so I think that could be super helpful for people.
Yeah. So we have that. We're also going to be launching a podcast for the YCLN show. I believe we're doing that mid-February. Awesome. And we're going to have a few mini conferences over the course of the year. So we'll be able to share those links with you guys as the year comes. And we should actually talk about you speaking, you and your husband.
Oh, let's do it. Yeah. We'll meet on Clubhouse. And if you're on Clubhouse.
Find me.
Bring it on down.
You can find me everywhere on all my social at Hey Chad Harrigan.
Yes.
So
we'll make sure we link to all that. I think that the podcast and the mini course, I think, will be super helpful for people. But I just want to thank you so much. I'm super happy we got to connect. I'm happy and joyful that you and your wife, really have not only just survived, but really thrived post-trauma, because I think post-traumatic growth is a real thing. And I think y'all stand as an example to that. And most people, it's hard for people to believe that really bad things can happen and your life can actually get better afterward. So I really appreciate y'all standing as examples for people that's possible.
Absolutely.
All right, sir. Well, thank y'all. Thank everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye.